I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar today. This is the Professional Services Webinar Series number 73 with our good partner, NSA Plus partner, Phocas. It's about tackling tariffs with BI with the Tariff Toolkit. In today's session, we have myself. I am the VP of Sales at NSA. And we have Maria Shailene, who is an account executive with Phocas. She's got over 18 years of experience in sales and recruiting roles at Adobe, Amazon, and Robert Half. She brought together high-performance teams, optimizing and talent acquisition strategies, and managing key business partnerships. Maria's career has been anchored in deep commitment towards building human-centered strategies, streamlined processes, and high-touch delivery to help her customers thrive. And with that, Marie, I will turn it over to you and have you introduce Sierra. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian, for the introduction, and thank you for having Phocas on today's webinar. We love our NSA partnership, and we're super honored to be here. So my colleague, Sierra, I'll introduce her more fully later on, but just to kind of kick us off for the agenda here, to set the stage, we know that distribution and manufacturing businesses are under more pressure than ever, not just to track numbers, but to somehow maximize margins during a time of pretty extreme uncertainty. And so today we want to unpack what can feel like an overwhelming topic, which is how to tackle tariffs with BI and FP&A insights. But don't worry, we'll keep it light and solutions oriented. After all, as you can see, our mission is to help you feel good about data. So the NSA webinar number 71 back in April featured Mark Patterson. Actually, next slide, Sierra. Featured Mark Patterson from NSA on the topic of how to manage tariffs and CSD. So if you couldn't attend that, it's definitely worth a listen. So for some background on tariff FAQs and how to set them up in CSD, that was the topic there. So today is a bit adjacent to that or building on that session. And our aim is to show you how Phocas can help you build custom tariff scenarios to quickly forecast product costs without fancy Excel or SQL skills required. Number two, how to layer country of origin data into margin analysis and pricing strategy. And lastly, how to optimize inventory and diversify sourcing in response to rising costs. So just the structure of our presentation, I'll spend a few minutes giving some background on Phocas, walking through the concept of how we can help you thrive in tariff scenario planning and shifting environments. And then I'll turn it over to Sierra, who will demonstrate how, and we'll end with some Q&A. Go to the next slide. Awesome. So at a glance, Phocas has been empowering businesses for actually 25 years. Time flies, and this is outdated down here, but 25 years now. We're purpose-built for both distribution and manufacturing, also retail businesses, and we currently have over 250 actually mid-sized distribution customers. We're global, as you can see. We're headquartered in Australia. We've got a huge development team of about 90 people in New Zealand. We have a great team in the UK, also spread throughout the US. Our headquarters in the US is Costa Mesa on the West Coast. And we have over 40,000 global users and teams spaced across time zones. So our customer service follows the global, send path. And this is part of why our customer retention is unusually high at 97%. Phocas empowers its customers to take our tools, make them their own, and then we join you real time in that journey. We're also certified B Corporation, which takes quite a bit of work to attain, so our ethos is rooted in doing good and supporting good. And so how does Phocas actually work? The core of our business, and some of you know this, but some of you don't, I'll keep it brief. The core of our business is Phocas Analytics, and that pulls your sales, inventory, and purchasing data from your ERP all into one place. And over time, we've evolved into more of a comprehensive BI and FP&A solution. So we connect directly to your Infor ERP data. We pull granular details like invoice line items for the analytics tool, or for our financial platforms, we pull your GL and chart of accounts. And we map all of this data in an easy-to-use platform. And we're cloud-based. We run on AWS. So you can access Phocas via phone, tablet, computers, wherever, whenever. And the thing about Phocas, as you can see on this side here, this slide highlights that everyone can use Phocas easily. So from like the summer intern to the CEO and board, it's set up to empower business users for self-service, so they can effortlessly drill down with the click of a button to transaction level or GL details, following their train of thought, to ask questions, making faster and smarter decisions, and help everyone at all levels. So lastly, we have a rebates tool that automates your supplier and vendor rebates processes so that you never miss one again. And we have a lightweight CRM. But today we're going to be focusing on the budgets and forecast tool, which can help with tariff planning scenario. So if you haven't heard, we live in an uncertain world, and we're all feeling, the weight of political changes, tariffs, political shifts, energy price hikes, supply chain bottlenecks, and cost volatility. And these, unfortunately, aren't isolated issues. They compound quite quickly. And so with the environment constantly shifting, leaders like yourselves, you can't afford to rely on lagging reports or like gut instinct. You need access to accurate and timely, actionable data so that you can actually respond to risks and spot opportunities. So that's the ideal, right? And how do you get there? So on the next slide, we'll look into some common challenges. So we all appreciate and need Infor, but it wasn't really designed for agility, which is fine. It has its place, but any of this sound familiar? You've got poor visibility, some disconnected data, you've got some time-consuming spreadsheets full of manual errors, even though we try to be perfect. You've got static reports that are outdated as soon as you open them, and then limited access to data. So oftentimes some gold is locked behind IT or like a reporting specialist or expensive consultants, or even, as we've heard from some customers, custom reporting services or tools that cost like, $5,000, could take a month or two to actually receive and might not even be accurate. So not ideal. All of this slows down your ability to plan at a time when we need a plan more than ever. So Phocas helps you keep pace with technology, and in uncertainty gives you agility. We actually can extend the value of your ERP by automating your data, saving you hours, days, maybe weeks in your month or weeks in your year, giving you a full view of multi-source data, making it intuitive, and leveraging AI actually for instant answers. This all gives you actionable data, no data science degree required. And the power of what you can uncover with Phocas at a click of a button and visualizations. With that, your team doesn't just react to problems, you can actually spot them ahead of time to track key KPIs at a glance, visualize trends, patterns, opportunities, and then share those across the business, maybe even making you a hometown hero every now and then. And a bit more about Phocas AI. Phocas AI brings a new level of speed and simplicity to analytics. If you need an answer, just ask. Over on the right side of this slide, there's a little chat box, which allows you in the tool to type in a question like, show me customers declining sales each month for the last 3 months. And then it's going to transparently demonstrate the logic behind the answers. So there's no guesswork, just clarity. And so when we think about planning for tariffs and how to be agile and adjust, the what if analysis piece in uncertainty, what if modeling becomes essential. With Phocas, you can easily compare best case, worst case, base case, and then maybe even definitely model additional scenarios, testing the impact of variables, external changes, operational shifts, and then compare them easily side by side. And this kind of agility is hard to pull off, dare I say, kind of impossible to pull off with standard tools. But with Phocas, agility is really just the beginning. And so now we want to show you how that's actually possible. And my lovely colleague Ciara is here to show you how. Sarah Blomgren is a pre-sales consultant at Phocas Software, where she brings a love for technology and over 7 years of experience in customer success and account management. And before joining Phocas, she helped build customer relationships to connect people, data, and applications at Lumen Technologies. She values learning and teaching, and when she isn't helping manufacturers and distributors become Phocas champions, you can find her traveling and studying languages, and I can vouch, maybe even organizing hot yoga events for our team. So, Sierra, thanks for demoing the power of tariff scenario planning for us.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and jump out of this one and into the tool. So we'll touch on a couple of different items in here. This is the first time that you have ever seen Phocas. I think it's kind of important to just understand the core of the tool itself. So what you're looking at here is a dashboard, specifically around managing inventory, supply chain, pricing, understanding gross margin, and financial impacts. Dashboards within Phocas can encompass a couple of different data sources. So Infor is one of our largest markets that we work with. And dashboards pull information from different data sets within Infor to make it easy for you to actually analyze the data within your ERP. This updates on at least on minimum a nightly basis, but can be done on sorry, yes, this is on Tariffs, but for Phocas software, a little bit of everything. But within this, in particular, it pulls from a couple different data sets, again, sales, purchasing, inventory, financials, and uses the budgets and forecasts tool that we're going to be touching on today to understand those impacts. So within this, you'll see items that you've had in Infor previously. So country of origin, like we touched on in the previous tariff demo, suppliers, customers, and then the products that they're buying. Through here, you'll see items like which suppliers are increasing their costs, right? So when we're thinking about tariffs in particular, over time, suppliers may roll those prices, or yourselves may roll those prices onto consumers or other businesses that they're working with. You can also identify specific price increases that have happened over time and what that comparison looks like month over month. And then just understand here, what does that margin impact look like and by product class? You can see underneath here items like our current versus pre-tariff gross margins and what that variance looks like, as well as inventory items. So your lead time, your sell-through rates, your stock on hand quantity, things like that, to help you understand if it might potentially be a better idea to purchase internationally rather than purchasing those items or purchasing those items in bulk internationally rather than purchasing them locally, since that can sometimes be more expensive. And just some items here like cash flow, cash position, months to pay debt, debtor days, etc. All of that rolling up to items underneath here that come from this tariff 3-statement budget that we'll go over in the budgets and forecast tool that cover what the margin looked like previously without the tariff being taken into account, and then what that tariff looks like after doing some what if scenario planning within the tool. So a couple of things, again, about those dashboards. They are interactive and automatically update. So as we're pulling new information, it's automatically going to run these queries, these calculations for you. You don't have to redo that, but they're also interactive. So you can come in here and you can focus in on specific countries of origin up here at the top. And there's this blue focus button up here at the top you can click on, and then it updates the rest of the items within the tool. So you can start to understand what the difference looks like over time for specific countries of origin and whether or not it might take a longer period of time for those items to get to you. Now, when we're looking at items like this, dashboards are a great starting spot. These are customizable. Some come out of the box with the solution, but you can build out the queries that you need without SQL knowledge, like we touched on earlier, or without any technical knowledge whatsoever. But pull these items together, interact with them, distribute them out with the team, and then also use them as a starting point for analysis. So anytime that you're looking at one of these items and you want to understand, for example, which suppliers are most impacted by the tariff costs, you can click on that Analyze button and it sends you out to the analytics database itself. not going to touch too much on this this specific part today, but this is the basis of a lot of the items that are in this dashboard. Now, what we're looking at here is our budgets and forecast tool. There's a lot that we're looking at in this tool. There are a few data sets that make up the budgets and forecasts actuals. So essentially, budgets and forecasts is built off of either our financial statements tool, which pulls in your general ledger data and is built off of your profit and loss. It's great for capturing those overhead costs. So when you're thinking about freight fluctuation, for example, or just overhead costs generally, like employees, those types of things are more commonly pulled from financial data, right? But when we're thinking about tariffs in particular, more often that's going to be in your sales, your purchasing, or your stock information, because we're going to be looking at fluctuations in either the prices of the raw materials that you're purchasing, or adjusting the sales price, or understanding gross margin fluctuations based on rising tariff costs. And those can be difficult to capture, especially as they change over time. But by using the information that we have in Infor CSD, you can actually use that as a starting space for building out a budget that can help you plan those what-if scenarios. And all of that is what we use as the basis to publish back into this dashboard. So you'll see some key items underneath here. The financial tab, for example, 3-statement, cash flow budgeting, things like that. But the key items here really are that country of origin, and then the sales information within this tool. So what we're looking at the highest level is our trading entities. So we have 3 trading entities here, which represent, of course, the country that we're going to be, shipping these items to. So we've got Australia, the UK, and the US. But below that, we'll have the country of origin, or the country that these items are being shipped from, to our trading entities. And below that, our primary class. So our primary classes being product classes or product sets within the tool. Now, since budgets and forecasts is built off of the actuals, you can see underneath here, these are the sales numbers over time. And we keep seasonality trends throughout and sum up and roll up the numbers to the top. But if I expand out, for example, let's say the US in this scenario, expand here. So we've got those 3 countries of origin. Again, Australia, the UK, and the US, and their respective sales dollars. But then if we expand both of those out, you can see those primary or product classes here. Now this here is the sell price. So these are our sales figures that we're working with for the upcoming year. But if I were to go underneath each of these primary classes, for example, let's say we looked at the braking system up here at the top versus the braking system underneath the US, you'll see a couple of different items here. So some key items that are important to take into account, obviously with tariff prices, is what that raw materials cost is going to look like. So the items that you're sourcing, what does that cost to you as the business? What is that actual tariff cost going to be? What does that increased tariff look like if we add the tariff on? And what is that impact going to be looking like for our gross margin, both including and excluding it, right? And then ideally, what should we be looking at in terms of sell price in order to keep our gross margin at the same place that it was before? Now, the great thing about looking at different countries of origin is that between these 2 spaces, you can actually start to compare the different product classes or primary classes side by side with one another, right? So we're looking here at Australia and the US for the exact same product class and the exact same measures. But now we're getting a better understanding of which one would ideally, at the end of the day, be a bit more beneficial, whether it's to the consumers or to us, where we're going to be able to minimize the costs and maximize our gross margin for those products. So things like this, they publish back into the origin database, in this case, the sales database. But you can also do a lot of analysis within the budgets tool itself to understand what the underlying impact is going to be. So you can see here, for example, in the US versus Australia, if we use that raw materials cost as the base of that calculation, at the end of the day, we're going to end up increasing it by $5,000 for an increased cost here to $60K Whereas if we're looking at the US in comparison, obviously, well, US to US, we're not going to be doing that. But if we source from our home country, it would be a bit less expensive in that case. And then if we did the same thing with the UK, you can see underneath here that cost plus tariff is a bit less expensive versus sourcing from Australia instead. Now, if I right click on that database tab to kind of show you what the setup of this actually looks like, it's a good number of calculations that come into this. So budgets and forecasts, again, the basis is either financial statements or one of the databases, but we can interplay with both. So think, for example, your inventory costs being driven by the costs within this budget and being able to increase that for your budget based on projected tariff increases. But underneath here, so we've got our core data sets, our entities, our origins, our primary class. And this here is the basis for all those calculations and numbers we were working with. So we've got our sales dollars, our raw materials costs, and then you'll notice here we've got this most likely, and there are actually 3 of these underneath here. So this one is what we've determined is the most likely thing to actually happen. But if I actually X this out entirely and instead put into place our worst, it's going to roll up, and then those numbers will fill through to all of these other calculations. So that cost plus tariff, for example, that gross margin including tariff, the dollars and the percentages, as well as the recommended sale price to maintain that gross margin. We pop through here. We've got those trading entities, product sales being driven by our sales figures, and then finally our COGS being driven by our country of origin. And so just by clicking on that button, we're actually rerunning those calculations. So if I expand those same areas out, again, we're looking at the US, so let's say Australia, same group, and the UK for the same braking systems product group. Underneath this section, we've adjusted, you'll see moving forward, especially towards the end of the year, more like September on, what the expected tariff and costs would look like for those product groups. You'll see there's a little publish button in the lower right-hand corner. So again, these can all be published back to the origin database. So once you've completed something like this and you want to get a better understanding of what that's going to look like as your sales numbers start rolling in, these can be published back so you can do that side-by-side comparison. Now, like I mentioned, there are 2 key parts, not just this one, but of course the country of origin here is pretty important. And this is where we're putting the actual figures for what those scenarios look like. It's pretty easy to adjust things like this. With budgets and forecasts, there's a couple different bonuses for being able to do something like this. So typically modeling like this would happen within an Excel spreadsheet outside of Infor, but you're pulling that information from Infor, plugging it into that sheet manually, which allows for a lot of human error. You might be collaborating with a team to run these types of numbers. And oftentimes that means that you have different versions that are going between groups. And then when you're rerunning those calculations, you have to manually update everything. Within a tool like budgets and forecasts and any of these tabs, really, it actually keeps an audit log and allows you to collaborate with other individuals. So when you're running these and want to be able to update them, you can do that within the tool and know who touched what within the tool, and also, where did this end up, right? So for example, you'll see that these ones in black, we've left blank. This is the default, so no changes have been made here. But then let's say, for example, I go in here and in our worst case scenario, we plugged in the 20% increase, let's say just in case those UK negotiations don't go through. Maybe we increase it to, actually 0.5 was the original amount. You can take that, and we could even do this by product groups instead and copy it forward. And then without having to actually change anything within the tool, if we go through to US and Australia, it automatically reruns those numbers for you. And so you'll start to see how the margin degrades over time if those things are going to actually happen. Things like this also flow through to cash flow, for example. So you can understand how impacts like this might potentially cause shortfalls, and then figure out how to potentially be able to either meet them or, again, if you need to adjust the sell price in order to maintain what the original gross margin was, or just be able to minimize the impacts there. Then you'll notice too, so these are broken up here at the top by trading entity and then by country of origin. We've got that best, worst, and most likely. So if things start to change, right, we can always come in here and then make those adjustments and start to play around with the numbers just to understand those impacts. So it makes having to do modeling a lot easier within the tool versus having to, again, rerun those calculations, do multiple versions, or exist within multiple spreadsheets. If you do work with the team, again, I mentioned that you can kind of collaborate with other individuals in the tool. You can actually assign things over to other individuals. So right now we're sitting with the Phocas account. So it's us, Phocas. If you click on that baseline, you can actually leave comments, assign it out to other individuals, and then those individuals will get a notification for a task within the tool. And then once they get that task, they can come in, make the changes to the numbers that they need, whether it's in sales dollars or in these specific percentages, and then assign it back to you. So you have full control over it. And again, every edit that's made within this tool is something that you have visibility into. We go ahead and roll this up to the top here. We go back to that sales database tab. You'll see that we actually automatically run the calculations for what totals would look like underneath here. So summing up those raw materials costs, those tariffs, all that sort of stuff. And again, these are the numbers that end up back in that dashboard, which is something that's fully customizable for your team. So you can run them as need be. It's pretty easy to get this back into the tool. So there's that blue publish button. All you do is either, if you're rerunning those and you want to just update with the latest updates that you've gotten around tariffs, you can publish it over an existing budget, or you can publish it to a new one. So say, for example, having a best, a worst, and a most likely scenario for these types of budgets, and being able to see all of those side by side. Then, of course, if your team really does love Excel, if they are a big fan, obviously it is a huge thing within the space. You can always export the budgets out to Excel as well. Same with any of the reports that are built within the tool or analysis that you're doing. And then, of course, underneath here, so you're able to go into the space, understand your financial performance over time based on those driven figures with COGS from that space. And all of this can, again, also be published back to the financials, so you can see it side by side with that general ledger information. You can also incorporate things like calendar days, weekdays, or working days into the tool as well, or publish just for specific date ranges. And then when you do actually have a budget in place, something that you kind of want to stick with, you can actually forecast over time with those actuals to see what the running impacts are of the budget within the tool. Then finally, so again, our financial statements tool, which we haven't really touched on today, but the financial statements tool is built off of the general ledger information within Infor CSD. So for this information, you build it out, customize it, your categorizations, your calculations, all of that sort of stuff. And so within that cash flow specifically, you can tie this out to cash receipts, your investment income, purchase for your inventory, things like that, and just start to understand, again, based on fluctuations, where there are potential shortfalls based either on the budget or based on the estimates for the tariff scenarios, and play around within the balance sheet to how we can potentially adjust that over time. And again, all these things are fully customizable. With Phocas in particular, the Infor Cloud Suite solution is a gold star solution within our organization. Work really closely with our customers to build it out. And yeah, it's the basis for things like this. So it's tailor-made for that solution. Alrighty, Maria, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Sierra. I had to unmute myself there. So you can maybe tell us from her demo, but you can't break that tool. And it's, again, built for the end user. Any level of the business can understand how to use it with just a click of a button, and it's pre-built for Infor products. So it comes to you 80% out of the box, ready to go. So you can have access to dashboards and whatnot right away. So without, actually, Sarah, do you mind, are you able to show the presentation again? If not, no big deal. But
Yes.
we just want to turn it over to some Q&A to give you a chance to ask questions.
Yeah, guys, I would ask that you please enter your questions into the chat. I'll give you a few moments to do that. I do have a couple of quick comments. So as Maria mentioned early on, we actually did a tariffs webinar specifically to how to operate tariffs within Cloud Suite. So how to get that set up, how to have that working for you, which feeds directly into the Phocas toolkit. So that combination is going to give you the best possible solution you can have in this kind of uncertain tariffs world. And I do have some questions, but I have a couple of comments before we get there. I was taking some studious notes here. So some of the things that I think are really important is the fact that you've got these detailed dashboards and reports within Phocas specific to your tariffs, and you can play the best, worst, and most likely scenarios, because we know that tariffs seem to be changing and the rules seem to be changing on a pretty regular basis. So you can very quickly go in there and do your analysis and model those changes. I think that that's a huge, huge plus. And with that, I will start the questions. And again, please enter them into chat and we'll address them. So let me just get there real quick. So I do have 4 questions so far. So how much time does it take to set up Phocas dashboards, scenarios, and comparisons?
Great question. So as I mentioned, we have a pre-built solution for Infor with dashboards, favorites, and alerts already set up for you as a starting point. And so then we train you to customize, give you the keys to the castle, and let you take them from there. But typically from kickoff date to when you're up and running, it's about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on implementation queue timeline, but that's the average. And we're finding customers tell us that they have about a 50% reduction in month-end close time, as well as 300% increase in reporting speed, et cetera. So it's quick turn to have that power at your fingertips.
Okay, that sounds great. I think you answered this a little bit earlier in your presentation, but if you want to expand on it, you can. Can the models be exported to Excel if we need?
Yeah, happy to expand on that. Yes, of course. The answer is yes. Ciara showed you the button that enables that. Also, we can export to PDF. And what's great is the tables and formatting are all maintained. So it's consistent with the visual look and feel, no confusing data there. It's all consistent with helping you feel good about your data.
Sounds great. And then the final question I have is, what's the best way to pull our data into one place so we can forecast, reforecast quickly and easily?
Ciara, that's a good one for you, I think.
You can actually, so you can pull them into the budgets and forecast tool. So the numbers that we were looking at in the tariff budget, for example, are the actual numbers, sales figures, could be purchasing data, inventory data, anything like that. And all of those numbers can be pulled into the budget. But then once you complete a budget, you can actually create a forecast off of it. And that's going to compare your numbers as the year progresses up against what your expected figures were. And those can all be published, again, just back to the original database. So you can see them side by side, understand trends, or then, again, reforecast if numbers aren't exactly hitting where you were expecting them to. But great question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah. And again, there's still time for questions if you want to enter some more into the chat button. But while we're waiting for that, if we want to cover the promo, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. So special offer between now and June 30th, our end of fiscal is June, actually. And so it's our busiest month and a great time to take advantage of a special we're offering for this webinar audience, which is 5 user licenses for the price of 4. So essentially a 20% discount on user licenses. And our pricing tends to go up a little bit each July when it's the new fiscal. So double reason to, take advantage of that in June if you can. Just get in touch. We have a QR code at the end and email addresses. Get in touch and we can schedule a tailored demo to show how Phocas can support your business and give you that 20% discount on licenses.
That sounds great, Maria. And again, you can see here, there's multiple ways to contact us. You can reach out directly to Phocas. You can reach out to the NSA sales team as well. And I would encourage you guys to do that. And we really appreciate that very generous offer. This is probably the best time to do a webinar with Phocas right at their year end. So if you guys want to get a really nice deal, especially with a need as critical as tariffs these days, I would encourage you to reach out and make sure that that happens. With that, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. I will just ask Marie and Sierra if you have any final thoughts that you'd like to give before we do a wrap.
Just really appreciate the chance to be here with you all today and hope to talk with many of you soon. Again, thanks to NSA for having us here.
We appreciate your time. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Sierra, for your hard work in pulling this together. Thank everybody for taking their time out of their busy day to attend this. And we're going to give you 20 minutes back of your hour. And thank you all for attending. That's a wrap. Have a good day, all.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.